In 2016, a new TV show hit the digital airwaves and needed a podcast dedicated to chronicling its adventures. An elite team has been assembled for this task. Unfortunately, the world's listeners have not heard of this Wonder Twin duo. And although they may not be known now, in the future they will be referred to as tomorrow's legends.
Hello, Legendaires. Hi, Harley.
Hey, Flash. How's it going?
Oh, I don't know if it is going. I am still in recovery mode, or what we call up here, expo withdrawal.
That seems like a pretty apt name.
Oh, yeah, what a long weekend. I mean, up here, the Calgary Expo, it starts Thursday, so it goes Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But I'm actually on the job since Wednesday. And they're very long days. Thursday, the 4 days are 14 to 16 hour days, so it's a long time on your feet and running around and being in charge of people, but it's fun. I can't complain. I'm running a video crew, and I get to hobnob with the celebrities in behind the scenes, and
That's true.
Yeah, so I thought we'd have, instead of having our little fun introductions that we normally have, I thought we could open the show. I'd tell you a little bit about how that went, because I got to meet one of our characters, one of our favorites, Mr. Brandon Routh, who plays Ray Palmer, Adam, on the show.
Awesome.
Didn't get a lot of time with him. The photo ops happen to go pretty fast. You get a few moments at best through the photo ops, because there's hundreds of people lined up, and they gotta rifle you through pretty quick. But I managed to chat with him for a moment and have that experience, and it was great. I had Patty Spivot with me. I think everybody on our Facebook page has seen the picture by now, but it's a great picture. The man is not Adam size, let me tell you that.
Oh, that's fantastic. Is he tall?
Oh, I barely crest the top of his shoulder, I think, if you look at the picture. Yeah, he is definitely of Superman caliber and body size. It's crazy. He's a big dude. But what I found was really interesting talking to him is that he's extremely friendly and soft-spoken, and you just feel this vibe of kindness from him, and it's an amazing feeling. You just notice, even though I only had a few moments with him, you felt that from him. Even when he was up on stage during his panel talking, he talked a lot about his personal life. There's a lot of personal questions and stuff. He actually didn't talk about Legends very much because there wasn't a lot of fan questions towards it, which I found surprising. There was a few Superman questions, the odd Legends question, but a lot of life questions, asking about his health and how he takes care of himself and success and all that kind of stuff. So it was really neat to hear him speak. And he has such a kind heart and such a friendly outlook, or peaceful is the word I'm looking for, a very peaceful demeanor towards the world and towards people. And he went on to talk about the odd time he's gotten to play a villain. It's the biggest struggle in his career, because he is so far from being a villainous type of person that he really has trouble diving into a villain role. And that's why he loves playing the Atom, because it suits who he is and more what he's like. Just the fun, lighthearted, enjoy life, enjoy everything as best you can. And so it was really neat. It was really, really neat to hear him talk about that. And I think that's why we see him the way we do on Legends, why he's got that boyish charm and seems to relish everything that they're doing, and we're always laughing about that because he comes up with all the great movie lines and just seems to go into all the missions with a smile on his face. Mm-hmm. That's Brandon Routh coming through, so it was really neat. Again, I did say it on the Facebook page, I wanted to apologize to all of our listeners. I was really, really hoping to go talk to him at his autograph table and get a sound clip from him. I was going to get him to say something to our podcast, but I could not get there in time. His autograph session was right after our photo op with him, and I had to go from that to do some video work, so I ended up missing it. But I'm gonna make it up to you all as best I can. We've got a little something special. I was up on stage with him during his panel. From the side of the stage, I was filming him, and I got some great close-ups of him. I'll post some screenshots of it later. I did post a few selfies from my phone up there so you could see exactly where I was in comparison to him. But I had a great spot for filming him, and we have a couple audio. I ripped the audio off of the video footage, and we're going to play that for you right now, just so you can hear him, what he was saying while he was up on the panel. How's that sound, Harley?
Sounds great.
Cool. All right, pull up the first one here. I believe this one was when somebody asked about his relationship with Kendra and the trouble that seems to be causing him.
She's supposedly only supposed to love one man. So how do you think that will affect the future between them, even though they are trying to make it work?
That's a good question. I mean, it's all up to Kendra, right? She's having a big struggle, a crisis of conscience, of fate versus free will. And I think we'll continue to see that play out for a while. It makes for good TV. And it's just kind of the story so far that's progressed with Ray and Kendra's relationship. I think the thing to figure out, or to learn from this is Ray needs to maybe just think about the women he gets involved with a little bit. He keeps getting in, he's like becoming the third wheel in relationships.
So there you go. He's feeling like a third wheel.
As he should be. Especially after this episode. That was a very appropriate clip.
That was an appropriate clip, yeah. So we got one other one here, and this is a fan asked him what's coming up next in the show since it's getting close to the finale. What can we expect to see in the next few episodes? And he had a very short, very quick response to that, but I thought it was kind of funny.
There's a love story. We've got more time travel. Flying. And more explosions. Y'all need to check it out. You can follow him on the Instagram, Twitter, Brandon J. Rose, who are still one of my favorites, buddy. Nice to see you again. Give it up. Spread it out, everyone. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend.
That was really funny.
So what's coming up for the rest of the season? There's flying and explosions.
Time travel.
Or time travel.
And a love story. Oh, great.
So there you go, guys. I hope that makes up for it a little bit. What I am going to do to even put a little more icing on this make up to you cake is... This is just the podcast version, so that was only audio. What I will do is, along with this, I will also make up a video edition of this podcast. So when it comes to those clips, basically it'll be the Tomorrow's Legends logo when you're watching the file, and then when it comes to those clips, I will actually insert the footage that I got while I was up on stage with them. So you could, have a look at it and just pretend you were right where I was. What do you think, Harley? Sound like good enough makeup?
I think that sounds great.
Okay.
It's fun to just hear the clips and get to kind of experience it secondhand, so.
Yeah, well, it was pretty neat. And, I mean, for the fans of the other shows, I did get to meet Clark Gregg, aka Agent Coulson from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and all the Marvel movies. That was pretty cool. And I did also meet Alan Tudyk, from Firefly fame, and people know him from Dodgeball and a couple other movies as well. I'm gonna get over onto Gotham Undercover and talk to our friend Jeff there because I actually met Robin Lord Taylor, aka the Penguin.
Did you really? That's
yes,
cool too. I didn't see a picture of that.
I did not get a picture with him. His photo op was, of course, at the exact same time that I was elsewhere on the showgrounds doing something else, so I missed that opportunity. But I waltzed right up to his autograph table and had a good 5-6 minute conversation with him, shook his hand, but that's not for our show. I will talk all about that over on Gotham Undercover in my feedback, so hopefully they play that.
I'm sure they will. I will make sure to download that podcast. No, I download all their podcasts actually, but.
Well, okay, Harley, let's get to this episode. This is Legends of Tomorrow, Season 1, Episode 13, titled Leviathan. Tell me, Harley, what was your rating and general overall impressions of this show?
All right. I gave this episode 8.5 fathers that are really monsters. Mostly because some of my favorite scenes of the entire episode And there were a lot of good scenes, don't get me wrong, but some of my favorites were between Snart and Cassie.
Okay.
So I love Wentworth Miller, and I loved that what they were doing with the two of them and how they were trying to kind of get them to see like the similarities between their fathers, even though they're the same but different. And so I thought those scenes were really well done.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you, and we'll definitely talk about that later in this podcast, because I'm right with you there.
Yeah, and then you got the cool giant robot fight scene. I mean, who doesn't love robots fighting? And there's just a lot going on, and I had some fun with it. I think everybody got a little miffed, shall we say, by the ending. But we will definitely get into that as we continue to go on. What did you think about this? What was your rating?
Well, I think I'm a half point off of you. I gave it an 8 gold-covered maces.
Nice.
And to me, this was one heck of a roller coaster of an episode, albeit a small roller coaster. I just found up and down with what it was doing with... it was like there was 3 different directors all taking their turns on this one. Because the opening 10 minutes was just awful. I was worried. Oh my god, if this is what the whole episode's going to be with, we're in for another burner of an episode. Ugh. But then it just immediately ramped up and was all out awesome for the majority of the rest of the episode. And then we come to the ending, and it just was a huge fall off the roller coaster rails. And yeah, we will talk about that. So that's why it was hard for me to kind of give it really good rating or a really bad rating. So I kind of was a little reserved in the middle just because of the ride it took us on. So.
Yeah. It sounds like you were a little bit more up and down on it than I was. I was pretty content until the end. At the end, I don't think made me quite as angry as a couple others. There's a lot of chatter on our Facebook page. I don't know I know you've had a crazy weekend, so I don't know if you've had a chance to look at it all, but definitely go back and check it out. There is a lot of chatter about the end of this episode. Well,
maybe you can bring some of it up. I have not had a chance. I managed to get my pictures on there from meeting Brandon Routh, and that was it. So I have not caught up on what everyone's feelings are. So yeah, you'll have to fill me in a little bit, and I'll definitely catch up later.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, let's dive into this episode. Where do you want to start?
Well, as usual, I keep taking different tactics on how to take notes for these episodes, hoping that one day I'll actually find a good one. Uh-huh. And I'm not sold, but with this one, for whatever reason, the mood that I was in was, let's write down what's happening and just go through the episode as it happens. So I'm just kind of going to start talking, and then when we want to talk about a specific point, we can kind of just launch into it.
Sure. Yeah.
So pretty much, I mean, the episode starts where we're basically flying into the year 2166 under heavy fire, and we learn that Savage's forces have taken over most of the world, I guess, at this point.
Okay, you know what? I'm going to interject right now because what I wanted to add in my general impressions is that I think with this episode, because of how up and down it was, I found a lot of little nitpicks throughout the episode, and I've listed them in our notes here. I don't really have a big nitpick, so as you're going through this, I'm going to come up with them. And I have one right now, just a little one. I just found it funny when they show up in 2166 under heavy fire, and there was who's firing? Why is London firing at us? And it's not London, it's Savage's forces firing at. Okay, what are they firing at? Because there was only the one. It was only the Wave Rider. And there was just literally hundreds of little explosions going off all over the place. So what are they shooting at?
I don't know. Maybe they had some sort of, maybe they detected them in their airspace. I have no idea what sort of capabilities they might have in 2166 or not. I don't know. It was hard to tell because it looked like a lot of explosions, and I couldn't tell if there was other stuff in the air or if it was just them.
I think my nitpick about it is that it was not very good effects. It looked like cheap little fireworks going off, and not actual, I don't know. It didn't give the effect of, whoa, you just landed in the middle of a war. It looked like, hey, you landed in the middle of 4th of July display. So, anyway, continuing.
Okay. Well, once they can kind of get to some safety, they don't really have a lot of time to make a plan. You get this interesting interaction with Rip, who's on high stress, high alert, high whatever. He's like, we've just got to go. We've got to do this. We've got to get it done. And Martin's like, can we talk about this? And he's like, no, we don't have time. Savage is only in the open tonight. This is our only window.
Yeah, he's acting on his emotions again. Yes,
which I found very interesting, especially given some of the revelations later in the episode. So I guess he's very high strung in the year 2166, 3 days before his family dies. So anyway, we learn that Savage is out in the open because he's giving a speech. Mm-hmm. And to me, I just pictured Hitler, and maybe partly it was the reaction of the crowd or the army or stormtroopers. I'm calling them stormtroopers. They were called something else, but I keep calling them stormtroopers.
Right. Yeah, I can't remember what they were referring to them as, but yeah. Well, and you said it kind of reminded you of Hitler. I mean, it looked very much like a Nazi gathering, and Hitler with all the soldiers and stuff. I found it was kind of funny. They're all somewhat in disguise in the crowd, and I found it funny that they're not talking very quietly amongst themselves. They're in the group of soldiers, and they're being pretty open and pretty verbal about themselves, and they're also the only ones without helmets. It's kind of a little bit obvious that they don't belong.
Yeah. That's true. They did stick out a little,
so it's And then, but Rory, it was kind of funny when they're all talking and he's like, shush, this guy's giving a great speech.
I know. I was like, oh dear, please don't join Savage's forces.
Yeah. And then it comes, of course, the female officer, who we don't quite know who she is yet, walks by and recognizes Snart. Well, once we realize who she is, of course she should recognize him. I mean, Savage is a little too smart to not have her fully informed on the time travelers that have been chasing him throughout time. Mm-hmm. I mean, Savage just isn't lacking in sharing important information,
Oh yeah. So. No, I agree. But in the moment, it was kind of like, why is she looking at him that way? And then he's like, oh, she's made us. And everyone's like, no, don't worry about it. No, she hasn't. And he's like, yeah, she has.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was obvious. She looked right at him. She had a bit of a smirk.
Yeah, I thought so, too.
Snart's also, he's smart enough to acknowledge what just happened. They were recognized.
Yeah.
But here's my question, because we do find out pretty quickly that it's Savage's daughter, and her name was Cassandra. Mm-hmm. So here's my question. It's his daughter. Does that mean she is also immortal? What happens when an immortal has a child?
That's a good question. Part of me wants to say no, she's not, because her mother wouldn't have been. So, but because he has been made immortal by, not like a curse, but some sort of
magic or something.
Yeah, I was like, I don't really know how to...
You don't think it's biological? You wouldn't pass that on?
I don't think so, but I think it does pose an interesting question. Because we don't really know how that would work, I mean...
No, that's true. But we have seen him feeding the blood of Carter to his soldiers before.
That's true.
And that gave them extended life. So you would think that with his daughter, he would have done something like that, if not more, to also give her extended life.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely a possibility for sure. That does bring up some really interesting questions, especially since, at the end of the episode, she ends up turning anyway.
Yeah.
So... That is pretty interesting. But yeah, throughout all this, we get the revelation that Cassie is wearing Kendra's bracelet.
From her first lifetime all the way back in Egypt.
And so that can be used to kill Savage.
Well, it brings us back. I love how they kind of brought that story element back from a few episodes ago, that any item that was present at the time of all their first deaths can be used.
And didn't she see the bracelet? I think she had it when she confronted herself in the Wild West episode, but she had it in the picture, and then by the time she caught up with herself later, then she didn't have it anymore. I think it was that episode that we saw it recently.
Yeah, and I don't know,
and so it kind of just brought it back full circle.
But how does it happen? I mean, in order for her to get the bracelet from lifetime to lifetime, she'd have to go find it again every time. It's not like it's just going to automatically appear every time she's reborn again as a baby. Like, she has to go find it each time.
Yeah, and I think Savage confiscated it because he had been acquiring all those artifacts over the years since he's immortal and doesn't die. And so I think at some point that they had certain artifacts, and then throughout the lifetime, Savage, when killing them, got them back.
Right. And
so now, so that bracelet, because I think at one point they say that bracelet had disappeared. It may not have been in this episode, but in a previous episode, that bracelet had disappeared for quite a long time, and then it shows up on Cassandra, meaning Savage had to have taken it at one point.
Yeah, that would just seem logical.
Yeah, same thing with the knife. He just keeps it with him.
Mm-hmm. Well, because I'm sure he knows that those items could be used against him, so he's going to try to track them all down himself anyway.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Something kind of surprising happens to me here at this point in the episode when they send in the team to get Savage. They had Snart, there's a big firefight, and it was pretty cool. I love the scene with Sarah fighting Cassandra. That was a pretty cool fight sequence, and it seemed like they had the upper hand for a second, but then all the reinforcements came in and Rip told them to fall back.
Yep.
Snart has Cassie at point blank range, and he just kind of smirks at her and lets her go. So at that point of the episode, I'm wondering, what is he doing? Take her out.
I know. I think we all were. We're like, why did you do that? I mean, obviously they do that so that later you can have, all these great scenes together and the reveal and yada, yada, yada. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know if you really want to let her go.
Is it at that point in time, does he already know? Is he already pre-planned in his head what they're going to be doing?
I don't think so, because they don't know who she is at that point.
So then why would he spare her?
I guess he has a soft spot for her. I don't know. Maybe he thought she was cute.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, that's all I got.
Well, maybe Snart's intelligent enough that he figures if he spares her, she might owe him one later.
That's true.
And it comes back into play later, yeah.
That's better than him growing soft.
Yeah. All right, so where do we go from there? What happened next?
Well, after they fail to kidnap Savage, so they all escape back to the Wave Rider, and Kendra, who during this whole sequence was telling Sarah that she's like, hey, get that bracelet. And Sarah's like, really?
Jewelry shopping now?
Exactly. And so once they all get back, Kendra explains the significance of the bracelet, and that's where we learn she's had in her first lifetime and all of that. And so Rip's like, okay, well, this is important if we can use it to kill him, to kill Savage. So he sends Snart and Rory to acquire this bracelet, which of course they botch, but we cut to some other scenes. So while, Snart and Rory are kind of off locating Cassandra and trying to get this bracelet back, which we come back to later, Rip makes contact with the rebel army, and he takes Firestorm and the Atom with him, even though nobody becomes anything.
Yeah, we never see it. I mean, he has them as firepower insurance, basically. But yeah. we didn't even see the Atom suit once in this episode, nor did we see Firestorm.
Well, Ray becomes the Atom later to fight the robot.
That's true, yeah. I meant little tiny Atom.
Oh, yeah, no, he sort of does the reverse this episode.
Yeah, and we'll get to that. This is where the episode starts jumping around for me.
It did jump a bit.
I'm going to save this for my nitpick, because it's actually my nitpick. So anyway, they show up in this area, and they run into the rebel army, and there's a bit of dialogue, and they end up taking them back to the refugee camp, where their basically base of operations is for the rebels. Mm-hmm. And they're, the team's kind of mingling a little bit, but I just found it funny, because we see them arrive, or we see them meet them on the street, and once they get the who's who out of the way, and they take them back to camp, and they're, our team is kind of hanging out with the refugees, just chilling, waiting to find out what's going on, the leader of the rebels comes back. She goes, well, I just did a retinal scan on all of you, and, you know, you don't exist anywhere, and you guys are all supposed to be dead 150 years ago. What retinal scans? When did that happen? And how?
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I mean, I missed the point where a scan would have happened unless, I mean, I guess it had to have happened off camera.
That's the only thing, because as far as I know, you can't do a retinal scan from a distance, can you?
I have no idea. Not at least with today's technology, but this is 2166, not 2016, but still, yeah, I'm with you.
I just found the dialogue they wrote for whoever this base commander was, I just found it was weak and didn't seem to suit the scene that they were in. The wording just didn't feel right.
Yeah, it's probably one of those things. It's like, hey, what sounds super futuristic and techie? A retinal scan. Okay, yeah, let's go with that. That's kind of what it felt like to me. It was kind of one of those throwaway lines that I literally like in one ear, not the other.
Rip basically tells us a little something here, doesn't he?
Yeah, he sort of fills us in a little bit more of his backstory. And again, in typical Rip fashion, this all happens in the span of like a minute and a half. Mm-hmm. And so we learn that after he tries to kill Savage in ancient Egypt, he immediately returned to 2166. He found his wife and son, and as they're racing to the ship, Savage's forces kind of come in, stop them, and end up killing his wife and son.
Yeah, he says they cut them down.
Yeah, so slightly different from what we've seen, but they still die. And apparently he keeps trying to go back a little bit further, but the outcome is always the same. Every time he tries to save them and take them away from Savage, they die. And so I thought that was just really interesting because he's kind of come to this conclusion that basically the universe doesn't want him to save his family. So this is his whole, this goes back to fate versus free will, fate versus choices, which we get into pretty heavily later in the episode.
I have to ask you, does this challenge our theory and what the show has tried to explain already as not being able to go back to the same moment in time to keep trying to change it? Did they just throw that theory right out the window for dramatic storytelling, or what? Does that not challenge what we've been discussing for the last few episodes?
Well, based on what he said, and the way that I understood it, he's not going back to the same point every time. He started at one point and then has systematically been working his way back. And each time he keeps working his way back, they still die. And so eventually he just stopped.
Well, I thought it didn't matter. I thought it's this, you're going back to the same, it doesn't have to be the same second in time or the same minute, but it's the same event in time. So I thought that's how they kind of explained it. You can't, now that they've gone back to the Wild West town, they can't ever go back there again because they were already there, they already affected it. That just encompasses a whole period of time, not a specific day. So that's what I'm trying to apply here. He keeps going back to the rough few days of when his wife and son died. Does that not counter everything that we've already kind of established?
I don't think they've made it clear-cut enough for us to know if it counters it or not counters it, to be honest. I didn't think that it did, but...
Or...
not at least the way it was explained.
Does it become null and void because 2166 and his family dying is the point that he begins going back in time to stop Savage? Because that's the beginning point of his story, the beginning point of all of this. He can come back to that as often as he wants. Because for him, it's the present time, it's the beginning point that all of this started. So going backwards in time from there is what he can't revisit over and over. But he can keep coming to the starting point. Does that make any sense?
Yes and no. I don't know. I took it to be like in Rip's timeline, it was the sequence of events. Savage kills his family the first time. He goes back to ancient Egypt to try to kill Savage. That doesn't work. So he returns to a time just before the first time when his family was killed and tries to save them, and then they die. And then he goes to a time just before that point in time and tries to save them, and then they die. And then he goes to a time just before that. So I don't know if it's a matter of days, minutes, seconds, hours. I guess it couldn't really be seconds or anything like that. But
so are they dying sooner and sooner each time he tries? So they died on 2166 July, and then he goes back to April, they die. He goes back to January, they die. He's like, okay, I'm going to go back to 2165. They die. Like, are they dying sooner each time?
I guess. I mean, because you can only go so far before it's not going to really work. So, I don't know. It depends on their interpretation of things, and then it also depends on which future ultimately cements itself. Because if he starts on one day in 2166 and then ends up going back, but then the future changes each time, in theory, if it's a new future, he can then go to the new point in time, in theory. Just my take.
Sure. There we go. That's why I wanted to bring it up.
Yeah, it's very convoluted, and it's not clear cut either by the show, and this is strictly my theory and speculation on it. But
all right.
That's how I am taking it and making it work in my brain.
As long as it's acceptable to you, that's what matters.
I am making it acceptable to me.
Okay.
I
don't know if I'm ready to accept it yet. That's the point I'm at.
And that is fair. That is totally fair, because I guarantee you are not the only one out there.
Right. All right. Well, let's bring it back. So now we're back at the refugee camp, and Jax notices a young child off to the side, and he just waltzes over and pulls out a chocolate bar, or at least we think it was a chocolate bar.
Yeah, I assume it was chocolate. I think they said it was chocolate.
Yeah, and it was a cute sentiment and stuff, but I mean, why does he just happen to have a chocolate bar on him? Yeah,
I think it was random. I think it was kind of one of those scenes to just set up for what happens later in the episode with Martin.
Okay, yeah, I see what you mean. That's what I was getting at. It seemed like just a random scene to throw in that really wasn't connecting to anything at the moment, but later on it kind of ties into them wanting to save all the refugees and how important that is. And
yeah, it just ties into that, sub storyline of Martin wanting to save the refugees and, save the world and be a hero. And kind of the same thing when they cut to this destroyed, Delta camp, and they're talking about how Savage's armies they've cut down the most formidable in the world, and there's nothing you can do against them. And so this is yet another setup scene for later when, Ray, when we figure out what, the quote unquote super weapon is, and then Ray fights the robot. So, I think these scenes here were disjointed, but they become important by the end of the episode.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It kind of felt like this entire sequence was a cutaway. It felt out of place, but then it kind of brings other stuff at the end full circle.
Yeah, and this is, like I said, this is where I struggled. It was really a tough stretch to get through in the beginning here because of my nitpick that we'll get to later, just the jumping through the amount of time, the time gaps between the scenes and different things we were missing. We'll get to that. But we flash back to the ship, and Kendra's searching for information on how the bracelet can affect them, and she comes across Carter's mace and leather outfit and stuff. Mm-hmm. And her and Sarah are kind of having a bit of a talk about that. And again, I found the dialogue a little bit odd here. I mean, they open this box full of Carter stuff, and what's the first thing Sarah asks is, "Did you ever think about him?" Well, that's kind of a stupid question to ask, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's kind of the obvious question because they've set up this whole thing with Ray and this whole thing that she's conflicted over Carter versus Ray. And then, of course, Carter comes back. So, I mean, Yeah,
and so we jump to that because, of course, we start seeing flashback scenes back in 1941 of Kendra and Carter again. And she's basically she's not feeling confident about her abilities and being able to deal with Savage. And Carter's trying to encourage her that she can handle on her own, and she's worried about being able to kill Savage by herself if Carter was gone. And so yeah, we go through all of this, but I found it was just too much foreshadowing that Carter's going to show up. It just was way too obvious that when we do get to the scene where he gets unmasked, it was no big surprise. There was no emotion in it for me. It's like, yep, there he is. Okay, I knew it was coming. I just didn't know how.
See, I knew it was coming, but I was still surprised in how they revealed it and who he ended up being or not being or whatever. Yeah. I was not expecting that to be him.
I understand that, yeah. It's not so much the expectation of where he came from. It's just the reveal moment itself didn't carry the emotion from her to him. And, oh, there he's Carter and, the love of my 4,000-year life. The emotion wasn't there, so it didn't surprise me. But the story they wrote around it as to who he was and where he came from and why he was there, that I thought was really cool. Mm-hmm. The fact that he was a soldier in Savage's army, and we find out Savage, did some type of mind block, something or other on him, and he no longer remembers anything and isn't able to emerge.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Well, that and the fact that there'll never be a Kendra for him to find in all of his. So I have a theory. We'll get to that later.
Okay.
I mean, this whole scene was basically just to reveal that, she's been trained with this weapon, and she feels more confident, I guess, in using that to kill him because Carter was confident in her. I don't know. This part did seem a little out of place to me, but it worked, I guess. Anyway, so the next thing, this is when we jump back to Snart and Rory confronting Cassie and trying to get the bracelet. And, we see her training, and she takes down several guys, which is, pretty cool to see.
She should be. If she is Savage's daughter, she should be at least close to equal to him in fighting. You would think he would have trained well. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
So that was cool to see. I mean, I liked that scene. It showed a little bit more insight into her character, a little bit more insight into how, similar she similar in the way that he taught her. She's his protege. So, she's going to be an excellent fighter, and she's going to be a bit cold and detached, and, next time they're not going to show you any mercy type of thing. So I thought that was cool.
Right.
But this is where she reveals she knows who the team is. She knows who all of them are. They're time travelers. They're like, okay.
Which, again, makes sense, because why would Savage hide any relevant information from her? He wants her to know everything, so she can definitely stand by, be his number one.
Yeah, exactly. So once we learn that she is his daughter, all of these pieces sort of come crashing in, but at this point we haven't had that reveal quite yet. But
right.
Yeah, I mean, after, now that we've watched it through a couple of times, it's like, oh, well, yeah, this makes perfect sense of why she would know all these things and why she's acting this way and doing these things. So of course they're trying to figure out what to do and how they're actually going to get details out of her, because, once they've got her back on the ship, Snart kind of confronts her and says, so this is when Snart's trying to come up with his, interesting interrogation tactics, which I liked his approach.
I actually really liked seeing him appeal to her soft side with her daddy issues.
Oh yeah, it was great.
It was pretty smart, and it worked on her. He's pulling, and it was interesting from the Snart story side of things to see him pulling from his own past to be able to connect with her.
Yeah, and this is part of the reason that starting right here, I absolutely loved the scenes with the two of them. I thought they were great. Because right now she thinks that it's Per Degaton that's responsible for the death of millions, including her own mother.
Which ties us back to a couple episodes ago, so that was kind of neat.
Yeah, exactly. And so she thinks her father's a hero for standing up to him, because no one else would. And, little does she know, at least not right this very second, that it was really her father who released the virus. So really her father's responsible for her mother's death.
So she's not quite ready to believe it yet, but Snart touched on something that she obviously had some hint of it herself, and the fact that Snart is making those ideas, or giving those ideas some solid weight to them. She doesn't want to accept it because it's her daddy, but she can't deny the plausibility of it.
Yeah, that he might actually really be a monster. She's like, well, I'm trained better than that.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see about that. But while this is going on, Rory is melting down the bracelet for Kendra. How did you feel about this? Did you like that they used the bracelet to cover the mace? Or...
Yeah, I told you, I've got a list of minor nitpicks throughout this whole episode, and this is probably the biggest out of all. I almost made this my nitpick of the week, because that bracelet is tiny. It's a skinny little strand that wraps once around the wrist, and he melts it, and somehow it turns into this huge pot of molten gold, enough to cover the entire mace.
Yeah.
That's a little that was a little unbelievable.
I agree that it shouldn't have covered the entire mace, but what else were you gonna do at that point?
I don't know. Cover like maybe 2 or 3 of the spikes that were on the mace. That's all it really should have been able to cover.
Yeah.
I don't know. The only way I'm going to write it as okay in my head is that they had some other metal in the pot already that the bracelet just melted into. Yeah, just to add to it, to give them enough.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely could have done that. I don't know if that...
Still. Anyway, I mean, it was cool. Once the mace got covered and it cooled off, it actually made the mace look really cool because, hey, that's what they looked like in the comic books. Or their weapons were kind of a gold color like that, so.
Oh, okay.
At least from what I remember, they were. So that was kind of a neat little...
That's a nice tie-in.
Yeah, neat little tie-in for sure.
Yeah. I just like that it actually worked, but we can get to that later.
We'll get to that in a bit, yeah. So
yeah.
But now we get to the really... and this again, the episode's jumping to another scene here.
I know, it jumped a lot.
Yeah. So suddenly we get to Ray and Stein... It just didn't make any sense to me. Stein's like, I just studied some soil samples and I know what's attacking us. And Ray's like, well, I checked out the satellite telemetry something or other and I know what's attacking us. And it's not a super weapon that's explosive. It's a giant robot. I thought them figuring it out was kind of hokey, but when we saw it, oh my God, that was cool. That was like a cross between Tron and I don't know. I don't know what. It just was really neat looking.
Yeah, no, I thought it was a cool reveal. Just kind of like looking at it like, oh hey, those are footprints.
Yeah.
Like, that's a giant robot. Those giant footprints. So, as our Leviathan is on its way to kill the rebel forces, this is when... I know. So I guess they have an hour. So this is when Ray and Martin decide that they want to save all the refugees by bringing them on board the Wave Rider, which Rip is thrilled about.
Rip's not really thrilled, but I was totally okay with it, because guess what? They're in the future. There's all kinds of spaceships and technology and stuff flying around, so I didn't even blink an eye at, oh, what? Yet again, more people on the ship? Nope, they're in the right timeline.
Yeah, for once, it was actually the right timeline.
Yeah.
So, that was pretty cool. And I kind of liked that, because Rip he's pissed. He is not super happy that they've done this. And Martin's pointing out, he's like, you recruited us to save the world. That includes everyone that is on this ship. And I just really liked how he pointed that out, because he needs to keep reminding Rip what the end goal is, because I think Rip gets stuck on his family, which is understandable, but at the same time, it's like, dude, you recruited him for a reason.
Exactly, and I love that too. I love that they keep reminding Rip of that point, that they are heroes, and the only way to become a hero is to do heroic deeds like saving everybody you possibly can.
Exactly. Eventually, we see the robot, and it comes to attack the Wave Rider, and it's not good news.
No, I mean, it's a spaceship versus the Wave. They take a few shots at it, nothing happens, and it takes a couple swings, they're able to outmaneuver it, but then it grabs a hold of it, and it winds up to throw it like a baseball, and again, another minor nitpick, here we go, I don't even know how, I didn't count how many I have, but truly, the robots got a hold of the spaceship, Savage wants to kill them all. Why doesn't the robot just crush the Wave Rider in its grip? Finish them off. Oh yeah, his daughter is on board, so maybe he's not going to do that. Let's just throw the ship.
Yeah. Well, how much, was the robot, I don't know that they ever made it clear. Was it self-aware, or do you think people were controlling it?
That's a good question. That is a very good question, Harley. I was thinking about that, and I couldn't tell. Couldn't
tell either.
It had on its chest kind of a nuclear reactor symbol or something on its chest. So
it looked like a big Atom suit.
Yeah. Do you want to bring up that point that you have coming up later? Yeah, okay, so it has the Atom suit symbol, and you're questioning right here, is this fallout from Ray leaving a piece of his suit behind?
Yep.
I wondered that too. Not so much from the symbol, like the symbol kind of solidified that idea in my mind, but just as soon as I saw the robot.
Yeah, me too. As soon as I saw a giant version of it, and it looked like Ray's suit, essentially, but, you know, it's able to move on its own, not like with a human in it, I was like, wonder if that's what happened as a result of Ray leaving a piece of his suit behind.
Well, either, like, did he get enough information from it back then when they did, or, because remember another time we came to the episode with Per Degaton, there was flying Atom suits all over the place. They were like the police force.
Yeah.
So maybe the robot was just the newer version of that.
I mean, I think it's probably a perpetuation of the same technology, which I would imagine he gleaned from either from Ray leaving his suit, or if they did they manage to completely reverse that?
Reverse what?
The effects of him leaving a piece of the suit behind.
I thought they did way back then. That was like the pilot episode.
Yeah, because I
thought they did.
And I think they did too. And so when you bring up the episode with Per Degaton, you note that it's his brother that kind of had that influence and kind of weaponized his technology after he disappeared.
Well, and Savage kills Per Degaton, and therefore he is probably the new boss of Ray's brother. He probably either kills him for the technology, forces him to improve the technology, whatever. That probably is a more viable story arc to get to the giant robot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I mean, back to the original question though. So is it autonomous or is it controlled by somebody back at headquarters somewhere?
Yeah.
That I couldn't tell. I wasn't sure. I thought autonomous because it seemed like it was reacting the way it needed to, given the situation it was in. I can't imagine people controlling it that well. But
true.
We were flashing back to Jax on the Wave Rider cheering on Ray, and he was basically watching a kind of visual control screen of what Ray was doing. So maybe they had the same idea for the robot too.
Yeah, I know. It's hard to tell. I would think by its reactions it would have to be doing some of it on its own, but they didn't make it clear. But it was pretty cool either way.
You know what? I'm going to say that it was self-aware and under its own control, because the Atom suits that were the police force in the Per Degaton episode, they were running around doing their own thing. They were programmed sentries, basically. So I'm guessing this is just an upgraded version.
Yeah. Maybe it can react to certain things, but can't make big picture decisions. Like if it's being attacked, it'll fight back.
Yeah.
But it's not going to say, I need to go to this village and kill these people. Kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So it probably gets prime directions, but
yeah,
it gets its prime directions, but it carries them out however it sees fit. That's kind of what I'm going with, what I think.
Yeah. I think that sounds good. Yeah, these scenes jump around a lot. But as, you know, we're cutting back to Martin, who's kind of fighting for the refugees. This is after the ship gets tossed around like a baseball.
Yeah.
Or whatever, they're arguing, and Martin's fighting for the refugees on board because Rip is like, we've got to go, we've got to get on the jump ship, and Martin's like, no, that only holds 7 people, what about all of these people? And then it's revealed that he was stabbed in the crash.
Yeah, it was kind of that delayed shock, because he's caught in the moment, the emergency of the moment, so didn't even notice that he had a piece of metal sticking out his gut.
Yeah. Until
it physically started affecting his ability, and that was... did that surprise you? Did that worry you? Did that make you go, oh, no, not Stein? Did you...
I was a little bit worried. I think the second rewatch didn't help this scene, because then I felt like it was just convenient to take Firestorm out of the equation for whatever reason, probably budget, because there was a lot of CG in this episode, so adding a fireman probably, wasn't in the cards, but on first viewing I was like, oh no. But on the second viewing, it kind of killed it for me.
See, I only got to watch the episode once, and even still, I did not get that kind of reaction emotionally. I was kind of mixed on it. It did not like in the Wild West episode when we thought he got shot, I reacted more strongly to that than I did to this.
I did too, I would say.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I was as lukewarm on it as you were, but I definitely didn't have me as, I guess, concerned as, like, in the Wild West when I thought he was, because I thought he had, like, actually gotten shot. Right. Whereas here, like, I mean, we see him get hurt, but it just, I don't know, it didn't have the same impact. Snart has to confront Cassie again.
Yes, he does.
Because now he has to actually show her what a terrible person her father is. And so he tries to convince her by showing her all the refugees and just saying, you know, these are just their everyday people. They're just trying to escape your father's reign of terror. And then she's like, okay, well, if you think I can be manipulated that easily, then clearly, you know, you don't understand my father. You know, you're just as dumb as he says you are. And then he, you know, gets Gideon to play back the scene where we see that it was really Savage who releases the Armageddon virus.
Yeah, and I mean, I just found it interesting that he was just trusting her to unlock the cell door and let her out, and you could see the look in her face that she was also surprised by.
Yeah, I thought that was odd too.
But I think you could see in the expression exchange between the two of them, that was established back, that's what ties it back to when he had her caught point blank and let her go. They already established some type of, I don't know what you'd want to call it. You couldn't call it rapport with each other, but they already established a connection that they are going to be able to work together on somehow, some way. And, and you saw them both give that acknowledgement to each other when he let her out.
Yeah, I liked it. Oh, it was pretty good.
Yeah, and like you were saying, I love, again, the way Snart was appealing to her with this type of direction, showing her all of the refugees and everything. I mean, it's so not his character, and yet it made perfect sense coming from him because of his past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. They tied it together with the two, you know, fathers who are monsters, and I loved these scenes. They were so good.
Yeah, exactly.
They were some of my favorites. But, so this is all in the aftermath of them, you know, being tossed around like a baseball. But, you know, we see Rip again, he's struggling with the fact that he's may never save his family. And
let me interrupt you 1 second there before we get too far away from it. You just said this is the aftermath of them being tossed around like a baseball. So we have a whack of refugees, I don't know how many, 30, 40, 50 of them, all crammed into a room, and their ship just got tossed like a baseball and obviously crumbled into the ground like a pile of sticks. They don't seem to be too worse for wear.
Yeah, comic book, TV, hand wavy, healthcare. Being tossed around doesn't turn everybody to mush like it should, so. Mm-hmm.
It's not like they all had, you know, protective seats with shoulder bars or anything like that.
And even if they did, being tossed around like that wouldn't have done them a whole lot of good. But we digress. That's one of those things you gotta gloss over and take the Overlord's popcorn theory.
Exactly. This is just sheer, and that's why I said these are minor nitpicks throughout the episode.
Yeah, you gotta leave that one alone.
I'm still having a whole lot of fun. At this point in the episode, I'm still having a whole lot of fun, so.
Yeah. But anyway, so Rip, I mean, he's struggling with the fact that he will probably never be able to save his family, and that he thinks, in his opinion, the universe wants him dead. That's their fate, and he can't change that. And so Ray kind of comes in here, and he's like, how are the repairs going? And he's like, are there repairs going? And he gives this great speech because, you know, he can see what a bad place Rip is in, you know, and he's talking about free will versus fate and how he believes in choices that they can choose to fight. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, and then eventually you kind of can see that, like, Rip starts to come around because Ray has a plan, and Kendra has a plan, and Snart has a new ally, and so he's like, you know, maybe it was fate, but it was fate that brought us together to change the world. And
I love that moment. It was such a great, it was just a wonderful thing for Rip to say, because it shows that he's acknowledging the team that he has. They're his comrades, they're his new friends. We haven't seen him give them that type of recognition, and it finally seemed to come around to him. I just loved hearing him say that.
Yeah, I did too. I thought it was a great scene, and it kind of brought him out of some of his doom and gloom kind of demeanor he'd had all episode.
Yeah. Now we come to probably the coolest part of the whole episode.
Yeah, I agree.
Although, I mean, again, a little bit, this is comic booky stuff. He seemed to come up with the solution pretty darn quick to just supercharge his suit with some type of power cell from where did he get it from? A piece of the ship somewhere?
I think it's the time drive.
The time drive, yeah, something. It was supercharged, and it reverses I can't remember how he explained it. Reverses the molecules in his body so that they grow instead of shrinking, something like that.
Reverses the polarity of the dwarf star alloy.
There you go. See? Professor Harley.
So instead of shrinking, makes him grow big.
There you go. Now that was awesome!
It was very awesome.
Oh man, that was cool. I mean, you could tell it was visual effects and not actually Ray in the suit, but I didn't care.
Oh, yeah.
They did it really well that it looked pretty darn cool, and it was such a cool fight scene. I just find it funny that every iteration of any TV show or movie that's ever done giant robots thinks that they have to move slow because they're that big. Why can't we have a fast moving giant robot? You would think that when they're that big, they're so much stronger that, man, once they start running, they're going to be moving.
Yeah, that's true.
Everything's always slow-mo, and it's like big giant swing takes 12 seconds for the arm to come around.
More dramatic effect, I guess. I don't know, but you're right. It is kind of a trope.
Yeah, but it was still so darn cool.
Oh, yeah.
Ray having to kind of figure it out on the fly.
Mm-hmm.
And I love, well, you say you love Jax cheering for him here. I like Jax kind of giving him, quit trying to wrestle him, get in there and kick him,
use your lasers.
Yeah, use your
Actually, they're compact beams of light. Say, whatever, just shoot him.
Shoot him. Even the blast from the suit came out in slow-mo.
It did it.
Oh, it was pretty funny.
Yeah, I think that was definitely for the effect of it, but
still,
it was great.
It was great.
It was fun.
It was also kind of funny that they just happened to be in a wide open field with only the odd tree here and there.
I know. I was thinking that too. I was like, shouldn't they be crushing, I don't know, people and houses and towns and stuff?
That would have been neat to have a whole Godzilla type of city that they were trashing, but budget probably.
Probably. It's a little bit easier to CG a couple little minor trees and green grass than
and plus all the big Hollywood movies right now, that the common theme they're dealing with is what happens when superheroes trash a city and kill tons of people. So why does our TV show have to do that? Nah, let's put them out in a wide open field. Nobody's going to get hurt. There's going to be no destruction but a few divots in the ground.
That's true. It made it easier, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
They're very cool. And I mean, they were cutting back and forth from the fight scene to some other scenes.
They did, yeah. So all of these last scenes are all interwoven within the last 10 minutes, but I'm not gonna kind of try and jump back in between all those. I mean, we talked about the fight, so the next major thing is that Cassie confronts her father. And he notices her bracelet is gone and freaks out. And then
immediately. That's the first thing he sees.
Yeah. And then he realizes he's been betrayed by his own daughter.
Well, does he realize it at that moment, or did he at first think she possibly had it stolen? Because I don't think it was until she responded that he realizes she betrayed him.
I think he was pretty suspicious in the first place. And then he asked her, and then she lied, and then he,
Then he knew for sure.
You can't lie to me, yeah.
But I'm thinking that bracelet was probably some form of protection as well. There's got to be something more to its ability, so I think making sure that she's always wearing it is some form of protection for her.
I don't know about that. I just thought it was,
Well, why wouldn't it?
He trusted it to her. Just because it's something special from his life or whatever. He probably had some really meaningful story that he told her when he gave it to her. Maybe he said it was from others or something, which is BS, but...
I don't know. I think it'd be more than that. I mean, he's collecting all these artifacts from the Egyptian time period that he knows could kill him if it got into the wrong hands. I don't think he would just entrust it and give it to his daughter and let her run around with it. There has to be more to it than that. It's far too valuable a piece of... I mean, you look how he freaked out about it when it was gone.
Well, yeah, because he knows someone can kill him with it, and he knows who she's been kidnapped by.
Well, true.
That's why he freaked out.
I just think the fact that his daughter is running around wearing it, it means there's got to be something more to it. Whether it gives her power and ability or protection or something, there's got to be something more to it, because I can't see him just entrusting it to her. In the event that, hey, guess what? It got stolen, or, you know, she got captured and taken from her. Like, either way, I just can't see him taking that risk.
Well, but he clearly had a very high level of trust for her. She was like first lieutenant or whatever, like his second in command. So I don't know. I didn't think it was far-fetched at all. I figured it was a gift. It was a present. And then he freaked out because he knew who had it when it was missing.
I didn't mean far-fetched. I just meant it. I think there's something a little more to it, which is why she was wearing it.
I personally don't. But. Well, anyway, so our team comes out from the woodwork and confronts Savage and all of his goons. And so we get a couple great fight sequences here, and then Kendra kind of comes in and takes Savage away and kind of starts her own personal battle over there.
And yet another awesome, fantastic fight scene, because this is where things were jumping back and forth between Ray and the robot to these fight sequences. And it was a great back and forth between two awesome sequences. And it was cool because we've seen Kendra fight him before and she couldn't do it. Savage gets around behind her and ends up getting a knife on her throat. And you see him get into that position again, but she counters it this time. Mm-hmm. And it was just so cool. She starts swinging the mace and she's missing, and then she connects once with him and it has that bit of a blue glow and it hurts him. And you see her realize, you see that moment of realization that the mace worked. And that was so cool. And then it just gave her a boost of confidence.
Oh, yeah.
You see her laying the smackdown on him, and I was kind of giggling and having just that awesome excitement feeling all at the same time, because she just kept smacking him around with that thing. And I love the sound effect of it hitting him, and I love seeing him get hurt, and it was great.
It was fantastic, and she would have killed him, except for one of his pesky little stormtroopers comes in and stops her. And then she swings that mace around and knocks off the helmet and sees Carter.
Here's Carter.
Yeah, we all knew he was coming back.
Welcome back, Carter.
Welcome back.
I knew he was coming back. I didn't see that coming. I didn't think we were going to see him in that fashion, that he would be one of Savage's goons, but I liked it. I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, and that's where I totally agree with you. There wasn't the emotional effect to the scene, but the story they weaved around it was pretty darn cool, which we kind of started getting into earlier in the podcast. It's just...
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was cool that he has, who knows how long, but he's been a soldier for Savage for a while anyway, and Savage found a way to lock his mind up so that he never remembers who he was.
Yeah, which is interesting. I've been wondering how Savage did that.
Yeah, they didn't really explain what he did.
They didn't.
Whether it's a medical procedure or part of something he learned or magical, we don't know. But it answers a question for us. They don't have to reincarnate together, Kendra and Carter. He dies.
Yes, I've been wondering that.
See, because when he dies, he reincarnates, probably lifetime after lifetime. But as you wrote here in our notes, 2016 Kendra is still alive and well and time hopping. So until this Kendra dies, another Kendra will not be reincarnated. So in theory, Carter will never emerge without Kendra in his timeline.
That's my theory.
So what I'm wondering is, how many times has Carter been reincarnated without her since 2016? Because it's now 2166. There's quite a few lifetimes that could have come and gone in that time. So how many times has he been reborn without her? The poor guy, he's been alone for over 100 years, 150 years.
Yeah, so that's definitely a good couple of lifetimes, maybe 3, maybe 4, but his lifespan's probably longer Because if my theory holds correct and Kendra's not, since 2016 Kendra has not died, Kendra's not being reincarnated along with Carter, so Carter would live a full life blissfully unaware of anything because he won't ever emerge. He won't ever know who Kendra is or what he's really missing. Right. And he'll never take on Savage, so Savage goes on disturbed through all, the next 150 years or whatever.
Yeah, granted nothing naturally happens to him. He gets in a car accident or something, like, whatever. Yeah, he might
dies of old age, who knows?
Yeah, so yeah, it's interesting. Like, it does answer that, because we were talking about that, and we've brought that up, and that was one of our theories that we were tossing around. So it was actually really a relieving feeling it gave me to answer such a huge question. I was, thank you for giving us that answer. I felt relieved to find that out.
Mm-hmm. I did too, yeah, because I have been wondering that. It was like, finally, we got an answer.
Yeah.
But, unfortunately, that means that she's not going to kill Savage. Because if she kills Savage, she's going to lose Carter.
And that brings us to this scene at the end here that kind of starts stirring up the problems for a lot of people. For a lot of people.
Yep.
Is she going to kill Savage? Can she kill Savage? Because if she does, Carter will never emerge. She'll never get to be with him again. But if she doesn't kill Savage, then Savage goes on to kill Rip's family, and Rip loses his family. So here's the choice that she's at. She's got Savage dead to rights, mace above his head, ready to deliver the final blow. Rip's pleading with her to finish him off. Mm-hmm. And she's countering it with, I can't, Savage is countering it with, don't kill me, or Carter will never emerge and you'll never get to be with him again. I'm the only one that knows how to reverse that.
Yep. And that point is going to roll into my nitpick, so I will save that for a few more moments.
Alright, so
while we finish out the episode real quick.
From that scene, then, we get back to the rebel camp, and Snart brings Cassie along with him, and right off the bat, of course, the rebel leader is like, "What are you doing here? Why shouldn't I strike you down as you stand?"
Oh yeah, she was not happy.
And of course they catch her up to speed that Cassie's now switching sides and realizes who her father is, and she betrayed him and now wants to help stop him. Now, what does that lead to in the future? Does that mean Cassie becomes an ally to our team? Or is she written off now?
I don't know. I would like to see her come back just because I really like that character, but unless they stay in this time period, I don't know how they would bring her back, because now they've got Savage, they've got him kidnapped, and technically, if they leave, he's removed from that timeline.
Yes.
So that could, in theory, maybe help Rip a little bit. Would that save his family, or is it too close and there's just too much chaos and destruction already going on, so even though Savage doesn't personally kill them, they're still fated to die?
Do you know how many questions you just asked that we don't have answers to?
A whole lot.
Yeah, removing Savage from the timeline, does that save his family? What does that do to the timeline? Does that mean the world is now saved after 2166?
Exactly.
Does that mean Cassie and the rebels stop his army forces and, the war stops? Or does Savage's forces continue to fight without him? We don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. So I guess that maybe is what's going to lead into the ending of this storyline with Savage, because once you stop him, how does the world continue?
The future. Yeah. Yeah, in theory, if you stop him and kill him and remove him from the timeline, you've changed the future then, at that point.
Well, let me ask you, we've seen the Time Masters, whatever you want to call it, home, and they keep calling it the vanishing point, which is the point at the end of time. Well, what is the end of time? How long after 2166 does that happen, or is 2166 the end?
No, I would assume it's way, 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 way further in the quote-unquote future.
But that means, because the Time Masters are humans, so that means that the humans have to survive 2166 somehow. Savage doesn't destroy everybody and everything.
That's true, unless somewhere along the lines time travel is invented and they somehow jump to the vanishing point and make that their headquarters. But
jump to the vanishing point, eh? How do they know when that is? What if they jump
make it up. It's like a singularity. They find a point in time and they go there, and there it is. That's the end of time.
Because what would happen if it jumped a week ahead of the vanishing point? What's going to be there?
But you can't, because the vanishing point is where it all ends.
I was trying to throw you off your science track there. I'm not working.
Nope. Can't trick a scientist. All right. Well, let's finish this out with Rip confronting Savage.
Rip confronts Savage one more time, and I had to laugh. This is a humorous nitpick. He's in some type of glass cell with reinforced metal or some type of alloy, and Rip walks in and says something about "you're behind bars." I'm like, seriously, this far in the future, you're still calling jail cells like bars? Or that cracked me up.
Maybe that he picked that up from his love of the Wild West.
Okay, fine.
There's a lot. This was literally the last minute of the show, and there's a lot of good stuff in here about how destiny is nothing more than the sum of our own choices, and then that time, only time will tell what's going to happen. And then I really liked this final shot that we see, where you get Savage's face reflected next to Rip's face, and for two distinctly different people, they looked eerily similar.
Yeah, it was a crazy way to end it, with just kind of a ghostly glow of Savage. Mm-hmm. A reflection of him. Yeah, I didn't, until you said that, in our notes here, I didn't really pick up on them looking similar, but you're kind of right, there was a weird...
They did a little bit.
So I wonder what that means.
I don't know, but I thought it was a very interesting way to end it.
I'm not sure. And that's where they did leave it, so I don't know what...
It's exactly where it stops.
We don't know if the ship is flying... No, the ship cannot be flying away. It's pretty much in ruin. Because there was a point earlier in the episode they were saying, are we working on ship repairs? And they're like, how? How are we going to repair this? Yeah,
well, I think at that point, that was when Rip had given up, and he was basically like, no, there's no point, we're going to die in 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. And then that's when, Snart and Ray and Kendra were all like, well, I have a plan, and I have a plan, and I have an ally. And then everybody kind of perked back up. So I think at that point, Rip might have initiated whatever repairs, maybe, had Gideon start working on some stuff. Jax has been on the ship this whole time, and he is their resident mechanic.
Yeah.
So I think they did, I don't think we saw them go anywhere by the end of the episode, but I think that, the ship appeared to be lit and functioning a little bit better.
Yeah, I have a feeling that the next episode will still be here. I think they're going to be stuck in that time period for a little while. Because that was some heavy destruction. That would be too large of a time jump for me to just suddenly the ship is repaired and they're off and flying again.
Ready to go.
Yeah.
Well, that'll be interesting to see then.
Well, that kind of wraps up the episode. Let's get to our nitpick of the week, because we've kind of alluded to them a couple times throughout the episode.
Yes.
So here they are.
Form of water!
Alright, so my nitpick was keeping Savage alive just to preserve Carter's memories. And I think that was a lot of people's nitpick. Because, Savage, he's like, well, you'll never know how to unlock his memories without me. And it's like, Savage is never going to reveal that information. He's never going to tell them that. He's a supervillain.
Why would he?
He's never going to do that. Exactly.
Why would he ever? There's no amount of torture or anything that they would do to him.
Exactly.
Because he knows that would be the end. That would be the end. Why would he?
Yeah, exactly. But we also know that we can't kill him just yet because it's not the season finale. So that...
Drag it out a little bit more.
I know. So that was kind of my nitpick. I really enjoyed everything up until that point, and it was those last...
So it was the end that did it in for you, huh?
Yes and no. Not in a way that it, I gave it a 5. I gave it an 8.5. I still really enjoyed this episode, but it definitely, the ending is what knocked the points down. For sure. What about you? You had a lot of minor stuff, but what was your big thing?
Yeah, a lot of minor things, but the big one for me that I had to pull out was the constant change in the scenes. They were so abrupt and skipping time. missing out on so many filler details to kind of tie the whole episode together. It just seemed like chunk after chunk after chunk, and we're just supposed to somehow understand how we're getting from one point to the next. As an example, just from one little sequence, when they first run into the rebels on the street at night there, they arrive at the rebel camp, they settle in for a little bit, and oh no, the Delta base has been attacked. Well, how far is that? Next scene. Hey, we're here. They show up in some type of sand buggy things. Let's take a look around and then look for survivors. Next scene. Nope, the whole town's destroyed, nothing left. Let's go back to base. Jump, jump, jump. It was just like...
It did jump a lot. It jumped a lot.
Oh, yeah. So it just seemed like they had all these great ideas, but they had no way to connect them all. And I think the story could have flowed a lot more smoother and give it more substance if they just kind of let it play out a little bit longer.
Yeah.
So and that just bringing it full circle, it was just jumping around too much for me. There was too many big time skips that they were doing.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree with you there. It jumped a lot. There were some points that did take me a little bit out of the episode, but then there were others that the way they cut the scenes with the dialogue, they kind of worked together for me. Mm-hmm. But it didn't take me out quite as much as it took you out. But I do agree that there was a lot of it, and it was a little bit distracting at times.
And again, then kind of my overall feeling too was just that I didn't like how it started. And then we get this huge middle section of amazing fights with the robot and Ray, and it was so good in the middle, and then to end it the way they did to finally kill Savage, I was just like, so it was again big jumps and big changes, and that's why I initially felt there was like 3 directors on this episode. Well, that is the nitpicks, and now we come to the quote of the week.
Shape out and eagle!
My favorite segment.
So, do we have a clear winner from last week?
We did have a clear winner. Oh. It was, as I predicted, Terminator. And it won with 6 votes.
Won with 6 votes. Did it win by a lot? Was there any...
The second place winner had 2 votes. Actually, there's 2 second place. There was a tie for second place, and they both had 2 votes.
All right. So not as many votes this time, but we still had a clear winner. So here's the winning quote now.
Come with me if you want to live. I always wanted to say that.
All right, Harley, so what do we have for our quotes this week?
Our first quote is nicknames.
In order to capture him, I require the services of...
Killer, Klepto, and Pyro.
Bingo.
And number 2, Harley, is...
Rhetorical.
How am I supposed to teach someone to fight with a piece of jewelry?
Good question.
It wasn't rhetorical.
All right, so what do we have for our third quote?
Our third one is called Bauble.
We just like bright, sparkly objects, like that bracelet.
You'd risk dying for a bauble?
It works with my outfit.
And what about this last one, number 4?
Our final one is 1,948 degrees Fahrenheit. And for those of us up in Canada, 1,064 degrees Celsius.
Fantastic.
I'm gonna need you to burn something for me.
About time.
All right, guess what time it is, Harley?
Time for feedback.
Time for feedback.
43 powers, activate!
We didn't get any pre-show feedback this time. We only have post-show feedback.
I know. Maybe that means everybody's caught up. But then they should probably send in post-show feedback.
Yeah, I'm wanting some more post feedback. We've got 3. We got 2 emails and a voicemail. Mm-hmm. But I'm kind of listening to how much feedback Supergirl and Central City have gotten the last couple weeks. I'm getting a little bit jealous. I would love to have an episode where we get so much feedback, we have to dedicate a bonus podcast just to feedback.
That would be cool.
I would like to have. That's our challenge to you, our listeners, our faithful followers and family and friends. We want to do a bonus podcast before this season is out. So find an episode and load us up.
Maybe the finale. Maybe that'll draw a lot of buzz.
What I'm a little bit worried about is if our feedback is starting to quiet down, does that mean we're losing viewers of the show, or people starting to lose interest in the show?
Or lose interest in the podcast.
Oh, well, please, not that.
I don't know. It could be both. I mean, this episode it's kind of a hard one to do feedback on. I mean, aside from that last scene, there wasn't a whole lot that was polarizing. There was just a lot of stuff that was really cool and really interesting.
Yeah, but I mean, even if you just want to share your feelings, your emotions, talk about your favorite character or why, just anything. We just want feedback. That's the fun part of it. It's getting to hear from you guys what you're thinking. Because if you want to discuss your favorite character, hell, we'll talk about it with you.
Yeah, maybe everybody just had a busy week.
That's true. I mean, I had a busy weekend. Look, we're recording on a Monday night ourselves.
Yes, we are. And I have to go to work in the morning. So let's get to feedback.
All right, feedback. So we got 2 emails. One from Kelly, aka Master Wordsmith. Take her away, Harley.
Kelly says, well, we are gearing up for the last few episodes. I'm getting excited to see how they will end Savage's reign. Aren't we all? Carter's showing up. I saw that one coming. It was only a matter of time. But even with his mind blanked, his magnetism with Kendra would still come through. It's part of their destiny. So killing Savage shouldn't have to change that. And also, can we please wipe that smirk off of Vandal's face? Yes, please. The battle with Ray reminded me of those Rock'em Sock'em robots. Anybody else?
See, the slow motion. There you go.
Yeah, that's true. I did not think of that until she said it, but now that's all I can picture in my head is Rock'em Sock'em robots. And finally, she says, you have to feel sorry for Ray. He's always on the losing end of love. See you in the funny pages, Kelly, a.k.a. Master Wordsmith.
And that ties in so nicely to our little bonus clip from Brandon Routh's panel, as he talks about being the third wheel.
I know. I do feel bad for him as the Ray and Kendra stuff really wore on me last episode, but I do still feel bad for the guy.
I have to say, Kelly, I love your wording, and I don't know if you meant anything by it, but when you're talking about Carter showing up and you saw it coming, you say it was only a matter of time. Ha ha, har har. Time travel show. Yeah, that was kind of funny. Well, thanks for sending that in, as always, Kelly. Always appreciate it. Next, we have a voicemail from Patty Spivot. I have not heard this yet. She just sent it in today, so I have a feeling it might have to do with her experience at the expo in meeting Brandon Routh, because she has never done that before. She has never met a celebrity or star from any TV show or movie. This was a first for her, so a very big deal. And it was pretty cool to get to experience that with her. So here's her voicemail. Let's see what she says.
Hey guys, it's Patty Spivot calling in. This isn't really podcast related, but I just finished following Flash around the Calgary Comic and Entertainment Expo for 4 days, having a super awesome time.
I called it.
I got to meet some celebrities, and there was tons of fun cosplayers. There were some Harley Quinns and some Flashes and lots of Arrow people and superheroes and all kinds of things, even a Captain Cold cosplay, which was really, really cool. Mm-hmm. And we got to meet Brandon Routh, which was kind of an amazing highlight. He's a really big dude and super friendly and super nice, and it was really fast, but we got to meet him and have a photo taken, and that was we watched his panel. So it was really, really cool to do that because we've been spending the season getting to know him. So I thought that was a blast, and I just wanted to call in and talk about that quickly and thank Flash for all the fun this weekend and getting to meet all the people and doing the photo op. So thanks, Flash. As far as the episode goes, oh my gosh, I actually was really frustrated at the end of it. The first, 10 minutes or so were kind of fine, and they were just setting things up, and I wasn't too into it. And then the Atom was a giant, and the battle scene with that other robot was amazing. Super, super, super cool effects and really amazing. And then Kendra came out in her full battle gear, and she was doing her thing, and it was spectacular and awesome, and we finally got to see her kick some butt. But then they ended it I was just really frustrated with the way they ended it. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys think. We'll be listening, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye, guys.
What did you say at the end there?
I said, oh, maybe not. We didn't give it a very favorable review at the end either. Or at least the ending, I should say. Overall, the episode I really enjoyed. I was right there with her. There were lots of great fight scenes. There was lots of awesome stuff happening. And then she doesn't kill Savage, and it kind of killed it for me.
I find it kind of funny that when she was talking about, and there was Adam, and he turned into a giant. She doesn't know anything about the comic book history. It's kind of funny that called him a giant just by chance.
That is funny.
That was pretty funny.
Yeah.
I'll have to fill her in on all the history afterwards, but that was good. I liked hearing. I always like hearing her excitement about the episode, or her emotion and passion. That was pretty funny.
Oh yeah, she's
Good
always
stuff.
very excited, which is awesome. I love to hear voicemails like that.
Yes, and you're very welcome. I'm glad you had a good experience at the expo. It was really a special moment for me to get to share all that behind the scenes stuff with you, with the celebrities and stuff. Welcome to my world.
Insert evil laugh.
We got one more email from someone we haven't heard for a while, the Bayou Shaman. Do you want me to read this one, Harley, or do you want to take her away?
Do you want to split it? Because he has like a clear splitting point. I can read the first half. You can read the second half.
That sounds like a plan. That's teamwork. All right, you take away the first part.
All right. This is Bayou Shaman. Finally having some time to give some feedback. So I think this is one of the better episodes this season with some minor issues. The good. Giant Ray versus Giant Robot. I could have watched an entire episode of that fight and skipped the rest. I had no clue that was where he was going with his idea to beat it. Surprised and exhilarated.
Cool.
I thought so too. Yeah. Number 2, Snart. Everything Snart is always great, and his manipulation of Cassandra Savage was great to watch, if a little quickly handled. I chalk it up to her knowing all along he was a bad guy, but deluding herself with no opposing viewpoints around to contradict her thoughts. Number 3, and a plan that actually worked. For once, they made a plan to get the bracelet, and it actually went to fruition without any major hitches.
Huh. That's a good point. Yeah.
That is a good point. Number 4, Kendra melting the bracelet to coat Carter's mace. Cool idea, even if there was way more molten metal than the size of that little bracelet. Hand wavy, right?
Thank you, Bayou Shaman. I'm glad I'm not the only one nitpicking on that.
No.
Sunny continues with some bad points. Number 1, London is the last bastion of freedom in the world, and they all speak English with no accent. Good pickup on that.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah. Heatwave has regressed back to his old self. I hope this was just bad writing and characterization. I was really enjoying the new and improved Rory. Good point. I don't think I picked up on that until you just said it.
There just wasn't a lot of him in it, and the only bits that we had with him was mostly him being excited about fire.
Yeah, so, yeah, but I can see what he's meaning. We didn't get to see the new and improved Rory, so, yeah. Hopefully that's not a continuing theme. We'll get the new Rory back. Okay. Number 3, my memory fails me, so correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Vandal Savage have magic powers in the Flash crossover? Was it just because of the staff? If he did have some mystical powers, why hasn't he ever used them again? Good question. You know what? I think it probably was the staff, because that's the only time we saw him having magical power and being able to blast people with it and stuff. I think whether it was the staff itself or it was a combination of the staff and him wielding it, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it had more to do with the staff than with anything else, but I mean, I think him using it was key, but I think it had to be the combination of the two.
Yeah, because if you remember, Flash and Arrow also grabbed the staff to fire back at him, so it definitely is the staff.
Oh, that's right, they did. I forgot about that.
So okay. There you go. Hopefully we answered that for you. Yeah. Number 4, how the heck did Rip not know Vandal Savage had a daughter? He has studied this man's life forwards and backwards, and this little nugget never came up. She would have been alive in the Per Degaton episode. She even says it was 14 years again that the plague was released, and she was well over 14 herself. That just makes no sense. God, you're bringing up some strong points here that I was not picking up on. She definitely would have been alive during the Per Degaton episode.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe he had her because he was living in Casnia, but if her mom was killed by the virus, they would have had to have been living somewhere else.
Oh, there you go.
Do you think she's a biological daughter or an adopted daughter?
To me, she had enough similarities in her facial features that I would think biological daughter.
Okay.
And, I mean, come on now, Savage is 4,000 years old. I'm sure he's shared a bed with a woman or two in that amount of time. Who knows how many kids he's got running around.
That's a good point.
Yeah, but again, another good point. I don't know why Rip wouldn't know about her.
Well-kept secret?
Yeah.
I don't know, that's all I got.
And number 5, Kendra. Do I even need to say any more? She's useless. Jettison her before season 2, please. You know, there seems to be a general... There's a lot of people with this kind of feeling towards her, and I can't say that I'm one of them. I liked Kendra since the Arrow and Flash episodes. And I think it's because I'm a little biased. I loved Hawkgirl in the cartoon series very much, and I've actually got a couple Hawkgirl figurines up here surrounding me. I am a big fan of the character, so I'm kind of clinging a bit to that. She's not really living up to her because it's constantly her trying to find herself on this TV show, but when she throws out her wings and she's swooping around, and now that she's got the Masons for her, I love that. I love seeing that bit of her. I guess it's maybe the Kendra scenes that I find are weak. When she's Hawkgirl, I'm happy with it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, the Kendra scenes are definitely weak, and this was the common thread on the Facebook page, is not a lot of love for those last, 5 minutes of the show, not a lot of love for Kendra at all. There's a lot of people that want to see her go by the end of this season, and I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think when they wrap the Savage storyline, they're going to have to wrap the Hawkman, Hawkgirl storyline as well, because they're so intertwined.
Well, I think so. I think that's what's going to have to happen, that the whole Savage storyline began in Flash and Arrow, and it's centered around Hawkgirl and Hawkman. So if they get rid of Savage, their story's kind of done. So they will probably have to move on and live their last final lifetime happily ever after, and that'll take them off the show. That's what I'm imagining.
Yeah, I agree.
So he finishes off. I know it seems I had a lot of issues with this episode, but I did really enjoy it, mostly for the Leviathan-Ray fight, which was just awesome to watch. Thanks for everything you guys do, and keep it up. Well, thanks there, Bayou Shaman. I'm glad you're still listening to us and still enjoying us. I'm glad that you sent in some feedback to let us know that, because, sometimes when we don't hear from a few of you for a while, we do wonder. So thanks for sending in. And also, you made some awesome points.
Yeah, a lot of good points.
Harley, how many episodes are left in this season? Do you know the exact count?
I believe it's 3.
Okay. So, Bayou Shaman, you constantly bring up some good points in your feedbacks when you do send them to us. If somehow you were the winner of our Name the Podcast contest way long time ago, and we were wanting to get you on, and we hope to get you on for the Wild West episode, but if sometime in the next 2 episodes you think you can be free on a Friday night, let us know ahead of time so we can work you in. We would love to have you on as a guest, just because you've got really great perspective and observations about the show. So I think it'd be pretty neat to have you on here talking with us.
Absolutely. That would be awesome.
Cool. Like we said, we have to say no to the finale episode. That one's got to be for just me and Harley, to finish off our first season together covering this event. So we want to do something special with that. But yeah, if you can in the next 2, let us know.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for anybody else, Harley, how are they going to get a hold of us and become part of this family and send us a whole sack full of feedback that we like?
Well, they can submit feedback via email to cybercastfan@gmail.com, and cyber is SIBER. And we ask that you submit all feedback by 8 p.m. Eastern on Fridays following the show. Like this week, we did have a little bit of a delay, so if that happens again, we'll always post, and just know that you have a little bit more of a grace period if we're going to end up recording later. So you can always send in feedback post-deadline if we're recording later. But you can also join our Facebook group at facebook.com/group/Tomorrow's Legends, all one word. And you can follow us on Twitter at Cybercast. And then all of these details and more can be found on our website at tomorrowslegends.libsyn.com. Libsyn is Libsyn. And there you can subscribe on iTunes, download some episodes, or leave comments about each of the shows. And hey, while you're out there on iTunes, make sure you rate us and leave us a review.
And that's how you do it.
That's how you do it.
Awesome, Harley. Well, I know it's been a long weekend for me, and I have not recouped yet, so I'm going to get on out of here. We'll make this a short ending, and I will see you very shortly, because it is already the new week. We've got a new episode in a couple days.
I know, late podcast drop, but that's okay. You know, we've got an all-new episode on Thursdays. Yeah. Get excited.
Getting excited. How are they going to wrap this show up, this first season?
I know.
Oh my
I'm curious.
God. Is there, like...
They better kill Savage.
And then are they going to leave us with some type of tidbit, cliffhanger, sneaky reveal, preview of what season 2 might have to offer?
Oh, they're going to have to. They've got almost a year's time before they're back. They're going to have to do something.
Do you think at this point the producers and writers know where they want to go for season 2, knowing that they got renewed, and they will leave us with, like, the finale episode will be half finalizing this season and then half leading into the new season, just with enough to tell us what it's going to be about?
I don't know if it would necessarily be half and half, but I definitely think, especially since they got the early renewal, that they will have a direction and that it'll play into this last episode.
Cool. Well, let's hope for that. Because I don't know if I could go all off season without knowing at all what's happening. That would be.
Oh yeah, I know.
All right, Harley. Well, get yourself some rest.
You too.
I will. Have a good rest of your week, and I'll talk to you in a couple days.
Sounds good.
All right. This is The Flash, signing off.
And this is Harley Quinn. I'm out.